So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for our virtual open day. So the schedule this is the admissions classroom, and the schedule we have for today is the first session is a panel discussion with NCUK, and then we're following with a budgeting workshop with myself, and finally a visa workshop for how to apply for the Irish student visa. So that's the schedule here today. You will have received the link with the schedule in other classrooms, so you can pop in and out wherever you want to be throughout the whole couple of hours we're running for. Just a few admin points. It's best if everyone keeps everyone who's not presenting obviously keeps their microphone muted, just so we don't have issues with background noise. And you can ask questions throughout the day by using the chat feature on the Zoom classroom. So just type in your question and we'll get to it. I can add it to the discussion that we're having throughout the day. Okay, so a very warm welcome to Andrew Straughan from NCUK, the Market Development Manager, and Ray Halpin, DIFC's very own Education Recruitment Manager.
Morning all.
Morning all.
So what we'll start with today, Andy, is if you could tell us a little bit about NCUK and the programs offered to international students.
Okay, thank you very much and good morning everyone. Thank you for joining us on your weekend especially, very much appreciated. So my name is Andy Straughan, and I'm Market Development Manager for NCUK. I've got main oversight of the African, Middle Eastern regions, as well as working with colleagues in Ireland. So it's nice to see some colleagues and potential students from the African region joining us this morning. NCUK as an organisation works with many education partners across the world, and we exist as an organisation to provide pathway qualifications to enable international students to get access to world-class universities across the world. We have a various range of qualifications available. Our most popular is our International Foundation Year. This is something that DIFC have been teaching for a good number of years now, with some really good success stories. The International Foundation Year is mainly designed to take students who have graduated high school, whether that be IGCSE, WIEC if you're from Nigeria, for example, or a wide range of Middle Eastern and Asian qualifications. It will enable you to bring you up to the education level that UK universities do ask for, and allow you to get guaranteed access into one of those universities as a result. The International Foundation Year is a very diverse qualification. It allows students to go on to a huge range of different degree programs. I think by the latest count, it was around 4,000. And this includes everything from business, accounting and finance, to fashion, marketing, media, film, and of course the traditional subjects within engineering and science as well. The International Foundation Year also allows students to progress on to medical sciences, and I know we probably will be touching upon medical science throughout the webinar today and in some of the other classrooms as well. It really is quite an important program in many respects, given that depending on where you're from, you have to complete a foundation year, so that the program really is designed to give you that opportunity to do that. In terms of other programs, we also have a master's preparation program, sometimes called the PMP, PreMasters program. And this is really designed to give students the study skills they need to actually adapt from their local bachelor, their undergraduate degree that they may have obtained in their home country, and allows them to kind of bring them in line with what a UK Irish master's degree will ask from you as a student. So within that, they have things like research methodology. It will prepare you for writing a dissertation, and of course it will provide you with English for academic purposes, which will not only improve your academic English and how you present yourself within your degree course once you're studying, but it will also give you the visa certificate, the qualification that you need to actually apply for the universities that you need to apply to. So we have 2 levels of program that we'll be discussing today. The International Foundation Year, which is designed for undergraduate students, and the PreMasters program, which is designed for those of you who are interested in studying a master's. Back over to you guys.
Thanks, Andy. So Ray, Andy touched on that we've been working with NCUK for a number of years. How long have we been partnering with NCUK, and can you just talk a little bit about the track record?
Yeah, so DIFC was set up in 1999 by Dermot Maroney, and we're the largest independent foundation college in Ireland. We started working with NCUK in 2004. So we've been working with NCUK for 16 years, delivering their programs exclusively in Ireland over that period of time. As Andy said, the IFY and PMP programs. It's a very well-established relationship, and we've lots of plans for the future. Working together, so it's quite a close relationship. We have in Ireland 14 partners, which range from universities to colleges to institutes of technology, and then we have the full access to the NCUK network of universities in the UK, but now further afield as well. So there's opportunities for students to progress to USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, among other places. And just briefly, I'm going to share my screen just to, sorry, it's disabled.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll add that to you, Ray. Yep.
So briefly, I just want to share my screen with you just to show you, I suppose, some of the placements that we have. So we started recording placements in 2009. And over the last 10 years, we've actually placed over 1,000 students. And as you can see, across Ireland to a number of partners, and then further afield as well to a lot of partner universities in the UK, and some others as well further around the world. Some of these for medical programs, but as you can see, there's really a lot of opportunities for students to progress after DIFC. And then last year, and this is really just to show you the range of nationalities that we're getting. So we've over 30 different nationalities of students study at DIFC each year typically. Excuse me, and they really progress all over the world. So there's a huge range of options where students can progress to over 4,000 courses after studying at DIFC.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Ray. So Andy, why would a student need the International Foundation Year? And can you talk about the major benefits of the IFY compared to programs such as A-levels?
Of course. So as I touched upon slightly earlier, there are some education systems around the world which are actually 1 year shorter than a UK education system, which is typically 13 years. In many different countries around the world, the high school system, so your secondary school, is 12 years in length. So it is stipulated by NCUK universities and actually by most universities across the UK that if you've only studied for 12 years, you do generally have to complete a foundation year. So in some instances, it's actually mandatory to do that. So a student would graduate from high school and they would complete a foundation year, and that would bring them up to the level admissible for a UK university. In other instances, perhaps a student has maybe not performed as well as they would have liked to have done on A-levels or on other courses available, which are 13 years. And the entry requirements that for their dream university are a little bit too far for them. So sometimes an international foundation year can be used to actually meet the entry requirements needed if a student has started studying something else. And of course, a big aspect of the foundation year is the English language component. So for those students who are joining us from countries where English is not necessarily the first language, there are a huge amount of benefits to studying on a foundation year from an English language perspective, that namely the English for Academic Purposes module. Some of the other benefits that a foundation year provides that maybe A-levels or IB does not provide, and there is nothing wrong with A-levels or IB, by the way. For any of you that know people studying on those programs, you don't need to worry them. They're not doing anything wrong. But the foundation year does provide some quite unique benefits to students studying on it. One of the biggest benefits is given NCUK and therefore DIFC's relationship with our university network, we're actually able to guarantee that any student who successfully completes the foundation year, and that is a C grade in each of the academic modules, we can actually guarantee that they will get progression onto one of the NCUK universities. Again, there are no such guarantees within A-level or anything like that. You enter the clearing pool and there's no guarantees at all. But for the foundation year, we do have that guarantee in place. Now, 90% of our students don't need to rely on the guarantee. They do get their first choice university, but it's still a very, very good safety net for students and their parents to keep in mind. The other major benefit of a foundation year is, of course, time. A foundation year is 1 year shorter. It's usually taught over 9 months, but DIFC also do teach a more intensive January foundation year as well, which is 7 months all in total. So again, students are actually able to get to university a year quicker than they would have done if they'd studied A-levels, for example. And one important point to make is the foundation year is not an easy option. And it should never be seen as an easy option. It is a very intensive and academically robust program, and that is why we're able to offer students the guarantee, because our universities are very, very happy and very, very satisfied with the outcomes of foundation year students. So yeah, the key reasons why foundation year could be attractive: the guarantee, of course, the time that you can save, and also the money that you can save. You know, you're cutting 1 year worth of tuition fees potentially out against studying A-level. And again, the access to the university network that our foundation year provides is pretty much unrivaled across foundation years globally.
Okay, thanks, Andy. A common question we get, and a common question we get from students in that vein is about securing a conditional offer before they've started foundation. I might put this out to both of you, but Andy, I'll start with you first. Is it possible to get a conditional offer for a student that's only, just applied for foundation, hasn't started yet?
Absolutely. Again, through our relationship with our universities, a number of NCUK universities, the vast majority, in fact, are happy to produce a conditional offer across pretty much any degree program. The only slight exception of that, just to be very clear, is usually conditional offers for medicine can be slightly trickier to obtain. Otherwise, all degree subjects, we are able to provide conditional offers. Anybody interested in seeing evidence of that, again, just get in touch with DIFC.
Great.
Yeah, and I suppose from DIFC's point of view, to reiterate what Andy just said, medicine is extremely difficult and extremely competitive. So your best bet, if you're studying the IFY Health Science program, is to take the advice of our placement team, where they offer application support, guidance and counselling in terms of where you're making your applications. It doesn't always just come down to what you qualify academically for. It also comes down to what you can afford as a family, because the medical universities in particular, there's a huge range of fees across the board. For the other programs, yes, it is possible for certain programs. So we're creating specific pathway programs such as nursing, computer science, game design, and a couple of others. Pharmacy, we've a very strong pharmacy program with UCC. And for these types of programs, we would be looking to arrange conditional offer letters with some of the Irish universities. It also depends on the country. So typically some countries, like India, for example, you must have that conditional offer letter in order to get your visa. So your best bet is to speak to somebody like myself or yourself narrowly and actually get the advice individually, because it's not a one cap fits all solution.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Just for those who have just joined us, you are welcome to ask questions. You can use the chat feature on the Zoom classroom, and I will work through the questions that you post through. So please feel free to ask any questions to Ray and Andy as you like. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was, obviously COVID-19 has changed the face of international education really this year, and a lot of students and parents are quite anxious about whether they're looking to pursue their studies this year, and their exams might have been cancelled, so whether that will impact their admission to a foundation program or university. Ray, can you touch on what the admission requirements are for the foundation year this year in light of the COVID situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's so many agents, students, parents concerned. A levels have been cancelled, IB has been cancelled. A lot of exams in country have been postponed. Like in Nigeria, for example, WIAC has been postponed, but there's been no date given. So I suppose the easiest thing to do again is if I do a quick screen share, because just to show you the admission requirements for DIFC this year. And the biggest thing is that parents and students especially, please don't worry, because we're accepting predicted grades. So it means if your exams have been cancelled, what we can do is we can look at your year 10, year 11 results and the first semester of year 12, or in somewhere like Nigeria, SS1, SS2, and the first semester of SS3. I know later in the discussion we'll speak about the English testing, so I'll leave that aside for now. But the biggest thing is that what we're doing in DIFC is we have decided that we're going to start online in September and run the first semester completely online, and then students will travel to us in January once it's safe to do so. We would like if we can bring students in earlier, but right now we have to go by the advice from the World Health Organization and also our own government in terms of international travel. And the biggest thing is safety. It's paramount across the world now, and putting our students first, and especially to give that reassurance to parents that we are going to have their students' best interests at heart. I don't know if you want to add anything additionally to that, Andy.
No, and I would just really reflect on behalf of NCUK's university network that even the stage after foundation year, everybody is being a lot more flexible in terms of understanding the challenges that prospective students are going through. So again, if you are concerned that you won't have the paperwork necessary or whatever it might be, then please do reach out. That it's a real opportunity at the moment in terms of flexibility on entry requirements. So don't be shy, and please do reach out to colleagues in Ireland.
Great. Andy, you mentioned before the placement guarantee and how that works with NCUK. Can you just talk a little bit more about what the placement guarantee involves, and whether it's related to a specific university or whether it's across the board?
Sure. Yeah. So again, this is something that is fairly unique to NCUK as an organisation. Because of our relationship with our universities, we are actually able to guarantee that our students do receive the conditional offers from the universities upon making application. Partway through the year, with working with colleagues in Dublin, students will start to make their applications to university. They will then start to receive offers back from those universities, hopefully. And the students will then rate the offers in terms of their firm choice, so their first choice, and their insurance choice, their backup second option. If all things go well in their exams and they achieve what they need to achieve in terms of what the university offers are, then they will progress to that university. That's very straightforward. If things don't quite go to plan, and we all know that everybody reacts very differently in exam settings, the pressure of the day sometimes can get the better of you, or maybe the questions you were hoping would come up haven't quite came up. We've all been there when we've been sitting exams. If things don't quite go to plan, but students still do pass the course, and we categorise, as I mentioned earlier, as a C grade across the board in the 3 academic modules plus a C in English. Even if you don't get into your first or your second choice, we will still guarantee that students are able to progress to one of the NCUK universities, and that is one of the NCUK universities. So that includes all of the universities within the portfolio. So yeah, we are able to kind of give the guarantee for across the consortium rather than just university by university.
Okay. And how likely is a student to get their first choice university if they choose the NCUK program?
Well, luckily we do have some very snappy statistics to back up this claim. So historically, it is usually around 90% of students get into their first choice university. So though we are speaking quite a bit about the guarantee, the vast majority of students, 90% of our students, don't have to rely on the guarantee. So again, it's important that the reason we have such a high statistic and why it is 90% is the support that the students receive in terms of making their applications. You know, we make sure, we like to make sure through counsellors at DIFC and through staff in NCUK's head office, we like to make sure that students are making the right choices for them in terms of their academic aspirations as well as their actual ability when it comes to their education. So I think it's important to stress that that statistic is high, not only because we have very high performing students, but they've also received a really significant amount of support in their applications to make sure that they're making the right types of application.
And that's a really important point, because last year in 2019, for DIFC students, actually after the application support, the guidance and the counselling, 98% of our students got either their first or second choice. So we actually had very few, like, you know, a really small number relying on the guarantee and relying on the backup choice. And that cannot, as I say, it doesn't just come down to academic grades. It comes down to interests and hobbies, what a family can afford. Sometimes it comes down to the facilities at a university or what type of city they want to study in. You know, so there's so many factors that our placement team are going through with students to help them make those right choices.
And putting it very clearly, I mean, what we're talking about here, ultimately students are studying on a pathway program, whether that be a foundation year or the PreMasters. Ultimately, they're studying on that program to get into their dream university. So the fact that we're able to say that students, you know, the real vast majority of students are getting into the university they want to get into, that's quite a big testament to the work that colleagues at DIFC are doing.
Okay, that's great. So we might move on to the Masters Preparation Program now. Andy, can you talk about why a student would need the PreMasters program and what's the benefit of taking it compared to, say, like just a straight IELTS course?
Okay, there are some significant benefits when it comes to the PreMasters. So the first thing I will say is we will judge any student who is aspiring to come on to the PreMasters. We will talk to that student before they've even signed up to the program in terms of discussing what their options are after the PreMasters program when it comes to applying to a master's degree. The main reasons why we think the PreMasters is such a good, high quality and beneficial program is that it really does prepare a student for the rigors of a one-year master's degree here in the UK. That's an important point to make because students do not have time to bed in and they cannot afford to start slow on a 12-month master's program here in the UK. They really do have to hit the ground running. We've heard many students other international students, they've got a fantastic undergraduate degree, a very strong bachelor, high GPA, etc., etc. but they've realised that the education system they've come from, whether that be from China or Pakistan or Brazil, the education system at their university in their home country is very...
I think Andy's just frozen there for a second, but I think the other thing to really stress is how different the education systems
in the UK. The course.
There he goes.
Yeah. So
yeah, am I back?
You just froze there for a
okay.
second, Andy. But just on the point that you were making, the education systems in non-European countries is vastly different to what you will get in Ireland and the UK. And what that means is how you present your documents to a professor, you know, and this is where students, even with a strong undergraduate, they will struggle because they're not used to things like data analysis, annotations, research methods, how to structure properly a dissertation. And that's on top of the general things like getting used to food, weather, culture, comfortable in your surroundings, making friends, you know, getting used to the navigation of the city you're now studying in and fitting in generally. So there's a lot of points that people have to consider when choosing, whether it's undergraduate or whether it's postgraduate, is choosing the right university and choosing the right path is pretty complicated from, you know, and that's where the support of DIFC and NCUK is really, really strong.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Ray and Andy. We might also just touch on the admission requirements for the PreMasters students, just in light of COVID-19. So there might be students who are just graduating this year. Can you just go through, Ray, what DIFC is accepting in terms of, you know, documents and that for PreMasters students this year?
Yeah, so obviously it's quite tricky at the moment because a lot of the universities are closed. So people can't get their hands on their transcripts and they can't get a hand on their final GPA. So what it is that we will again accept predicted grades and we will look at a GPA and then we will speak to our placement team and the universities to really outline where students can go. Because the PreMasters is really, it's kind of tricky when it comes to different countries. So for like Nigeria, you know, students with a first or second class degree, they don't really need a PreMasters. Third class students, degree students really do, but they're quite limited on where they can go. In somewhere like China, we can accept a 4-year bachelor's degree, but we can also accept a 3-year diploma. So really for PreMasters students, they should be speaking to us to get an idea of what's the options at the application stage. So we can outline clearly, based on their GPA, based on their English language level, you know, whether they require PreMasters, what the benefit will be to them. At some stage in the future, there will be a requirement for them to go back to their university to get things like a reference and their final degree certificate, which I believe are going to be awarded by universities, again, based on continuous assessment. But the universities for master's programs, they will look for that information. It doesn't stop you applying, it doesn't stop you being accepted, but it's just people need to have their eyes open about what they're getting into with the PreMasters and master's programs. Yeah,
and I think that's an important point, Ray, is that students don't need to, you know, go ahead and plow on with an application or not make an application because they're not sure. The best thing to do is to contact the likes of DIFC or NCUK, and we can help cancel them before they even make their application, so they're aware of what options they're going to have, what they'll need to provide in future, and that sort of thing. We can go through all of that with students before they even make an application, so that they're fully aware of what they're applying for.
The biggest thing for students who are listening into this, or who maybe even will watch the recording back later, is we give advice at DIFC and NCUK that's individual to students. So it doesn't matter if 2 students want to study the same type of program. They could be going to completely different types of university. Yeah. So we are counseling students about what's important to them. And we are putting their interests above everything else. So it's not because my friend wants to study here and we want to go to the same university. You know, it comes down to individual counseling, what's best for that student and their family based on their circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll move on. So obviously IELTS centres and Pearson centres and that are starting to reopen across the world. So there is a scramble on students trying to get testing dates to be able to get an IELTS certificate. What if a student can't get an IELTS test because they're fully booked? What else can they do, Ray?
Okay, and this is, again, I'm just going to briefly share my screen with you guys just to show you this, because this is quite an important question in terms of what's happened this year specifically is all the IELTS centres are closed, all the TOEFL centres are closed, and the PTE, so students haven't been able to get a test. So we've, in Ireland, and a lot of universities around the world are accepting a test called Duolingo. So, and the Duolingo test is completely online. It costs about $40 US. It's quite strict in terms of you can't have anybody else enter the room, and you can't be seen to be looking away from the screen. So it's invigilated quite well. And we've had a lot of conversations quite recently with Duolingo around the testing. And once we can equate it to IELTS, which we've been able to establish, it means that we can accept a score for Duolingo of 80 to join our September intake, and 90 for IFY medicine students, because the medicine program is more demanding, and certainly the exit grades are higher to get into a medical university. And then for our January intake, it's 90 really across the board. There are some programs like the IFY business program where we can accept 80 in January, but 90 as a general rule for our January entry. And those equate to, 80 equates to around 5.0 IELTS, and 90 equates to 5.5.
Okay. And what about students who have done, say, the UK curriculum? Can IGCSE English or A-level English be accepted in place of IELTS?
The short answer is yes, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. So yes, we can accept that academically. And there are a number of countries that students don't require a visa to travel to Ireland. So the likes of Brazil, Malaysia, South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, you know, those students don't require a travel visa to come to Ireland. So for those, we can look at their IGCSE grades. Ideally, if they have an English test, it does help because the universities like to see what they started at DIFC with, but it's not an absolute. We can work off their English test from their local exams or IGCSEs to give them the advice. Where the English testing becomes really important is it's a visa requirement to travel to Ireland. So, and I use this example when I go to Nigeria, and I go to Nigeria a lot. They probably speak better English than I do. It's still a visa requirement that they must have an English test like IELTS or TOEFL or PTE, or this year in special circumstances, Duolingo, because it's a visa requirement.
Okay.
And they won't get a visa without it. Now, we do have some students who will have, coming from many countries, who have an Irish passport. And if they have an Irish passport, they don't need a visa. So again, they can refer back to us and we can give them the advice that's particular to them. Perfect.
Okay. So just again, I know I've mentioned it a few times, but the situation with COVID-19, it is kind of a concern across the board. So can you talk about, I'll put this out to both Andy and Ray, what plans do DIFC and NCUK have in place to deliver the foundation and PreMasters programs this year in light of COVID-19? And I might start with you, Andy.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it has been a challenging year for everybody, not only within education, but of course, this is affecting all of us in every industry in lots and lots of different ways. What I will say is working with our network of study centres, of course DIFC being one of them, we've really adapted very, very well, and students have still seen the benefits of their studies, though it has been delivered online. So we've already banked some quite important lessons and experiences from having to go online over the past number of months. As we look towards the new year, again, NCUK and working with our universities are ensuring that we're providing our partners across the world with as many flexible options as possible, and that includes at DIFC delivering the first semester from September onwards online. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Ray?
Yeah, I suppose we've made the decision that we're starting online in September, purely and simply putting the safety of students first. And you know, while things are dramatically improving in Ireland, where the rates of the virus and unfortunately the fatalities are still happening, but they're now, you know, very much in single figures on a daily basis. So things are really improving. Our Prime Minister last night announced, you know, a further easing of the restrictions in terms of lockdown. But we've still got to put students' safety paramount above everything else. And it doesn't matter that it's getting better in one country. For us, it needs to be safe for a Nigerian student to sit beside a Chinese student, to sit beside a Brazilian, to sit beside somebody from Russia. So we will have the September to January online, and then students joining. We have been talking to you, as you're well aware, about some contingency plans if there's a second wave and if there's, you know, some circumstances where students can't travel. The biggest thing is, what we're trying to ensure is that students can still progress to university in September 2021, and they're not losing a year of their life, you know, sitting at home waiting for things to get better. So if things don't improve, there are contingency plans that we've been discussing to make sure that that actually happens.
Okay, thanks, Ray. And that goes on to the next question. So will a student's university placement in September 2021 be adversely affected by the COVID-19?
I can take this one, Ray. Certainly from a UK university perspective, there's absolutely no infringement or restrictions put in place by COVID. Everybody understands that it is affecting everyone, as I've mentioned. So there is, again, a huge amount of flexibility. You still have to work very hard on your foundation year. You still have to achieve the grades that you need to achieve, but the processes are now in place to enable that whatever you do achieve on your foundation year, whether it's delivered online or face-to-face or whatever it might be, a mixture of both, you will still be able to progress to university the following September. Great.
Again, if anyone wants to ask any questions, they can. We might just spend...
They're asking me. I'm getting some questions private, so I'm replying to people as I go along.
Okay.
So I suppose, actually, just to touch on some of the questions that I've been getting. So some of the questions I've been getting are, you know, can we get conditional offer letters for students coming from Nigeria? And I'm saying, yes, we absolutely can. It depends on where they want to go and what they want to study. And again, we would give that advice individually. Is there any age limit for foundation? So yes, we have a minimum age limit of 17. So that means you must be 17 when you join DIFC. So for this year particularly, it means you can start at 16 as long as you will turn 17 before the end of 2020, before you join DIFC in January. Is there any upper age limit? No, there's not. So there's no upper age limit in terms of education. But what's important is, if you are a little bit more mature than a high school student, is that we see a really strong CV with no gaps, detailing what you've studied post high school, transcripts, any gaps in education or employment are explained, because that will affect the visa application. And it's really talking to students about what's the benefits for them. So I had one student who asked me, you know, they're a little bit more mature and they're asking about taking medicine. And I'm really saying, you know, send me an email to ray@difc.ie, and I will answer you, giving you the advice that's best for you. And we can establish then, from looking at the documents, what's the best advice for that student.
Yeah, great. We're due to start the budgeting workshop now, but we might just spend a few minutes before we move on to that, Just Ray, if you
here's another question, Andy. You might want to take this one, because the questions are just coming into me privately at the minute.
you're the presenter.
Sorry, yeah, I should swap that back over to you. Sorry, which is, can you gain admission into any university in the UK after the foundation year?
That's a good question. Thank you for whoever sent that in. So at NCUK, we do work with quite a wide range of universities within the UK, and we think that we've got a really good and broad range available, both situated in all of the major cities around the UK, in London, outside of London, in the north, east, south, west, and we also have a huge range of universities within our consortium in terms of ranking, entry requirements, etc. So actually, I do think that we are able to almost cater for every student that is studying on the foundation year. However, we do understand that there are certain circumstances where you might want to apply to a university outside of NCUK. Maybe your mum or your dad has studied at that university, or you've got friends or family close by to campus. This is absolutely an option. The only thing that we will say, you will receive all of the same level of support as any other application. However, we cannot guarantee that you will receive an offer from that university, or we cannot guarantee that you will get progression through clearing to that university as well. Every year we do get many students who do progress outside of the consortium, but what we would really encourage you to do is, if you are planning to apply to a university, maybe King's College London or anywhere like that, Warwick, we do get students going to both of those institutions. Put that as your first choice, and make sure that you put an NCUK university maybe as your backup choice. At least you have the fallback option, and you kind of qualify for the guarantee if things don't quite go to plan. But yeah, it's absolutely an option in the UK, and that applies to universities outside of the UK as well. So we do have a number of relationships with universities in Canada, in the US, in Australia and New Zealand. Of course, both countries have handled the COVID situation particularly well. You are able to apply to these universities, and we have a list of universities on the website which shows the ones that articulate the NCUK foundation year. So yeah, we hope that you will apply to universities within the consortium, but if you want to go outside, absolutely fine by us. You should just know that it's not guaranteed.
And that's the same for DIFC as well. Each year we have a couple of students who wish to apply to their own universities, and that's completely fine, as long as they understand it's very difficult for us to support that application because we don't have any relationship with that university. And what happens then is, as you touched on earlier in the presentation, Andy, it goes back to the whole situation around A levels. You're now just a needle in a haystack applying to university, and they have no idea who you are. Where if you're applying to universities within the DIFC and NCUK network, we are talking to those universities about your application. We are making cases on your behalf for you to be accepted into those universities. So you have a much stronger chance of getting your first choice of university within the network.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a question coming now, Ray, that I'll put to you. It's asking if Ireland is allowing international travel at the moment, or when their proposed time for allowing that is.
Okay, so this is obviously quite an evolving situation on a daily and weekly basis. So right now, there's no actual ban on traveling to Ireland, but you do have to quarantine for 14 days once you get here. So it really comes down to the home country that the student is traveling from in terms of whether they want to come. And I suppose if we look at the students who've been with us and who are just about to finish in 2020, some students went home when the lockdown started and continued their classes online, and other students chose to stay in Ireland and continue here. So we may have some students who come in September, and even though our program is online, they can see that the restrictions maybe are easing more in Ireland than they are in their home country, and maybe they will actually feel safer to come here and actually stay here and study the semester online in Ireland. And that's perfectly fine if you want to do so. But what I would say is you need to follow the advice of your own government and the World Health Organization before you look to travel. And again, talk to us about your own individual circumstances, and we can get the advice from the Department of Immigration and your own home country, and we can decide what's the best for you.
Yeah. Andy, I'll put this one to you. A student, we've touched on the broader network with NCUK, particularly in New Zealand and Canada. Can you just touch on the process for applying to those universities through the foundation year program?
Yeah, so the process is slightly different, given that universities, for example, outside of the UK don't use UCAS. However, we do have contacts at our university partners in both of those countries who will work with DIFC colleagues and with NCUK colleagues to talk you through the application process. We have guides in terms of visas, documents, things like that, everything that you will need to make the move to one of those countries. For Canada, we know it's a very, very popular option in many countries. They have some fairly favourable post-study working opportunities as well documented. But equally, New Zealand, we work with the University of Auckland, which is actually ranked in the QS World Top 100 Universities. And again, they have some very, very competitive entry requirements. So whether you are interested in the UK or Ireland, or actually using that as an experience to live and study in Ireland for a year or 6 months, then you are still able to then springboard onto one of those countries. It's completely your decision to do that.
Yeah, and DIFC will fully support you through that application process with the placement team and the tutors that you're allocated as well. Okay, so we have another question. Do you get to apply to university before or after the foundation year? Ray, do you want to talk about this, about the placement process?
Yeah, so this is a really, really good question, because where students are applying by themselves, there's completely different deadlines that apply. And I'll use the UK as an example, where if you're applying by yourself, you have to have your application in by mid-October, I think, to meet the UCAS deadline for the following September. However, each year we have students starting in January who are applying to those universities for the same September. But what happens is students talk to other students, and there's this whole panic about, I don't have my university application in, and it's February. So what we do each year is we have a university open day in February in DIFC, where all of our Irish partners come over, and increasingly more and more UK partners come over, to where I think we had about 16 or 17 actually participated in February this year from the UK. And that gives students a chance to speak to the universities directly. So they listen to presentations from the universities as a group, and then they have what's probably best described as speed dating, where they can speak to the university one-on-one about where they want to apply. And then from there, our applications are normally made in March. And I say normally because some are a little bit later and some are actually done in February. But normally around March, the applications are made. And we are offering full application support to students through our placement team in DIFC to make those applications. And then they start to receive their conditional offers through April, through May. And then from there, it progresses to students accepting offers or waiting for their final grades to come through before they confirm their university place.
Okay.
Andy, have you anything to add to that?
No, not really. I think you've encapsulated kind of everything to do with the application process. The only other thing that I would maybe point out and might be worth showing on our screens is each and every one of the degree subjects across the NCUK universities you can see exactly what you need to get on your foundation year to actually achieve admission. Do we want to maybe show the course finder?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was actually going to move on to that. So,
Okay, perfect.
Ray, can you share your screen still, or do I need to?
Absolutely. No, you need to make me the host again.
Yeah, hold on. Where are you?
The wonders of technology.
Yeah. So just to explain why Ray is setting up, there's a very useful tool on our website and also on NCUK's website. It's called a course finder. And what this does is allows you to search a particular subject area and find out all the university options in Ireland and the UK that you can progress to, as well as then look at the specific entry requirements for that university. So
Yeah,
Ray, if you take through a few, maybe 2 examples.
Yeah, hopefully you can see my screen now.
Okay.
And this is the home screen of DIFC's website. And if you go across to where I'm hovering now, find a course, and you scroll down to DIFC Course Finder. But like every good cookery program, here's one I prepared earlier. Okay. So, and just to give you some examples, and I'm going to use one particularly, which is law. And I like to use this example on a daily basis because this doesn't just come down to, I want to study law. It comes down to what type of law program do you want? Do you want criminal law, civil law, law with politics, law with media, law with management, business law? There's so many different opportunities. And then if you scroll down, you can actually go through, like, as you can see here, you've got 205 items. So you've got 205 universities showing law programs. However, you may already have in your mind, and if I go back up to, this is searching for all universities. If I go to a particular university, and let's choose one in the UK. So let's go with our highest ranked partner, the University of Manchester. And you want to study law, so you need to click on IFY and then click on search, okay? And now you're just getting the law programs within the University of Manchester. And let's say you've chosen law with criminology. So you can click on this and it actually gives you more information. So you can actually go into the course code in the university's website, and then you can see the actual requirements. So you can see what's required in terms of your EAP grade and also your IFY grades as well. Now, if I come back out of that for a second, and we'll choose a different program. So it could be engineering. And again, the engineering IFY program at DIFC can lead to engineering programs, computer science, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence. So there's so many different programs you can progress to. And this time, let's choose an Irish university. So let's say the student wishes to progress to DCU, which is Dublin City University. And you click on search. Now you get the different engineering programs. And you can make this search as wide or as narrow as you like, okay? But if you decide, okay, the one that I'm really interested in is mechatronic engineering. For the Irish universities, you can also see the tuition fees. So you can see what the tuition fees are at the university, and then you can actually get the grade. So what you can see here is you need a B grade in EAP, which is equivalent to 6.5 IELTS. And then you need BCC across your other 3 subjects, which in the case of engineering would be maths, chemistry, and physics.
Okay.
Okay.
We just had one last question come in. Is it easier to go to partner universities in the UK and Ireland compared to universities in Canada and New Zealand? Andy?
There's no difference.
Yeah.
The processes are in place and the support is given so that even if, you know, wherever you want to go, as long as it's within our network, then we are still able to facilitate that. So you don't even need to decide before you've started the foundation year. You can actually decide partway through when you start making the application. So maybe in your head you're thinking, I really, really want to study in Canada. But actually, once you get to Ireland, you think, you know, I quite like Ireland. I'd like to actually stay and maybe study my degree here. You're still able, with that flexibility, to make that application. So there is no difference regardless of what you want to, where you want to go to.
Yeah, okay. And if a student wants to go to a university outside of Ireland, our student services team will actually speak to the student about the visa process, because it depends, it varies from country to country. So some students can apply at the embassy in Dublin and go directly. Other students will have to return to their home country and apply from there. So again, we will talk to students specifically about what's right for them. But just what Andy mentioned there, actually about over 70% of our students choose to study in Ireland purely because they fall in love with the country and the people.
We would love to see you guys in the UK, but yes, Ireland is an amazing place to study. I will vouch for that.
But I think what's important is, whether you study in Ireland or the UK, specifically, is there's a lot of post-study work opportunities. And in Ireland, during your degree or during your master's program, there's also work opportunities as well during the program. So for a master's, you can work part-time. For undergraduate degrees, you can work part-time as well. But also at undergraduate level, you do get a lot of work placement in year 3, and it's normally paid. So you'll get 6 months work placement as part of your undergraduate degree.
It might also be worth adding that for years and years, speaking again from a UK perspective, for years and years, well, certainly since Theresa May was foreign secretary anyway, well, home secretary anyway, it used to be the case that international students, pretty much as soon as they graduated their UK degree, they had to leave. Recently, towards the tail end of 2019, Boris Johnson, the current Prime Minister, he did announce that all international students from 2021 are actually now able to stay in the UK for up to 2 years to find a suitable job. Obviously, if they then find that suitable job, they may be able to stay for a much longer period of time, but that gives quite a lot of opportunity for graduating international students to work and live in the UK as well. And I know Ireland has some similar benefits as well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest benefit from the post-study work opportunity side is it means you're not rushing to accept the first job that you're offered.
Very important.
So if you've got the flexibility of an extended visa, it means that, you know, if you've got top marks, you can choose where you want to go. If you've messed and you partied and you haven't put your head down and really studied, then, you know, you're going to be pitching against hundreds of other people for those middle of the road jobs. But if you work really hard, get top marks, you know, you're going to have much better choices, and you can take a little bit of time, maybe a few months, to make the choice that's best for you.
Yeah. Okay, so we might leave this session there. Thank you very much, Andy and Ray. I think that was a really helpful discussion and covered off a lot of questions about, you know, studying this year with DIFC and NCUK and where students can go after their studies. So thank you very much. And we might move on to the budgeting workshop in a